What is your view to the opinion that Google is looking to disintermediate the OTAs with this product? And how would you respond to that?
I don't think Google has a disintermediation agenda. Now, with that said, it is true that Google allows for those suppliers that wish to go direct to do so if they wish. But again, because Google wants to bring supply and demand as close as possible, but it doesn't mean that demand has to come through an intermediator. If demand, the user wants to go direct, so be it. And Google is not going to prevent that from happening. There's a great analogy on wine. For the last 20 years, I've been working in travel, and I was part of an intermediator, then part of Google, and I'm now part of a supplier, which has given me a good perspective of how things are evolving. Wine, which I happen to love wine. The other day, I logged onto the website of a winery here in Spain, which I normally drink quite a lot, and I always bought it through the retail channel. The different OTAs for wine, which exist like in every other country. And then I realized that this winery was selling already direct on their website at a cheaper rate than on the electronic distribution. And I said, okay, this is interesting. Now, this is starting to happen now in other areas, which, the dynamics of consumption are very different, but it's starting to happen. And the point is, if Google wants to bring supply and demand as close as possible, if the supply wants to go direct and talk to William Barnes or Javier Delgado individually and specifically, because these two individuals want to buy directly from this supplier, be it wine, be it hotels, be it flights, Google is not going to prevent that. Now, if the intermediaries in between for travel or for wine are adding value from a price perspective, from a shopping perspective, from a logistics perspective, from an insurance perspective, from wherever it is perspective, then so be it. And actually, what draws the line clearly is the transaction. Look at Google HotelAds, how it has evolved. Google needs someone to fulfill that transaction in all cases. If it's an intermediary, so be it. And in many cases, the intermediaries are far ahead the suppliers because they have better digital assets, better know-how, better customer service, more payment methods, you name it. If you do a search for Hotel New York, you end up on the map, within Google Maps, and you see the Hilton Times Square and all the different properties. And when you click, and then you get the set of results, sometimes up to 10 results, you're going to see Hilton, Booking, Expedia. For those cases, Hilton is deciding they want to participate and they want to fight for that click and fight for that demand versus the intermediaries. So Google is saying, I'm bringing everyone to this auction. I'm bringing everyone to this meeting between supply and demand, and let the user decide based on their preference or based on the different proposals that Hilton may have versus Booking or versus Expedia. Again, from a price, usability, or whatever perspective it is. But it's not necessarily, so Google does not want to disintermediate. Google is putting a level playing field for everyone to participate, because actually, if you think about it, in the past, it was impossible for an independent hotel or even a bigger hotel chain to reach that particular client, so that particular demand. So I understand that Booking might be sometimes concerned about Google's movements or Expedia or so forth, and there's a whole wave of people, the fair search movement that took place a few years back, saying that it was unfair and so forth. But I think Google has brought a lot of fairness, because in many industries, intermediation, think about insurance or banking, they've been heavily intermediated. Now, the internet, not Google, but the internet as a global infrastructure has brought a lot of democracy, or kind of revisited the rules of the game, and has allowed supply to meet demand in ways it wasn't possible in the past. So I don't think there's a disintermediation agenda, but it is true that those players who wish to disintermediate because of their choice, they might have a better playing field or more tools available than they had in the past, because Google is democratizing a lot of the technology.
Yes.
And once again, this is my own humble opinion as Javier Delgado, not talking as a former Google executive,
of course,
or as a hotel executive now.
Yeah. So what I think is interesting then is Google is bringing the battle to call it HotelAds. It's democratizing access to demand effectively for the supply, but it's bringing the battle really to one place on HotelAds. The question then becomes, can the smaller independent hotel outbid the OTA? What is the dynamics there that even enables the smaller hotels, forget the Hiltons or the Marriotts, to actually compete on that product?
The answer is yes. So the mom and dad hotel, the William Barnes hostel, can participate in Google HotelAds if they want to. I don't want to get too technical, but you can participate via an integration partner. Just pull up a browser, put HotelAds integration partners. You get a list of about 80 different companies, which are not Google companies. These are independent, separate entities that they do a one-to-many integration. They put one pipe with Google and they send the hotel ads, and then they resell that to the independents. It's like an agency,
like TravelClick or
exactly TravelClick, Mirai. There's a lot of these companies. So the independent hotel needs to do a contract with TravelClick or whomever in order to get listed. Now, when you're talking about the auction, then can they outbid? Well, it depends on what their pricing and distribution strategy is. They might not necessarily need to outbid from an auction perspective because there's a quality score component. I don't want to turn this into a CM masterclass, but you know that the quality score is more important than the price you're willing to pay for that CPC, the maximum CPC, and so forth. So if you have the right strategy from a pricing and inventory management perspective, meaning that it's coherent and that you're willing to undercut your intermediators, and you're going to keep your last room availability, and you have a good website or a pretty good website that converts relatively well, and you do your CPC right, you do have a chance to outbid. And there are some chains out there and some independents doing a great job on this and outbidding the bigger boys. So it is possible. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is certainly possible, and Google is allowing that to happen, or laying the level field and the technical infrastructures that allow that to happen.